Hey, I'm Kate Liston-Mills. I'm an author from the far south coast of New South Wales. I wrote a book this year called Dear Ibis, and it is a collection of short stories published by Spineless Wonders and designed and illustrated by Bettina Kaiser and her design team. It's a collection of about 16 independent short stories and verse, but they are all interrelated. There is an overarching narrative going on. This is a lot more ambitious than my first collection of short stories, which was called The Waterfowl Are Drunk. This one deals with some pretty big themes, such as white privilege, colonial greed, loneliness, grief, the power of fear, love, motherhood, the climate crisis. Some pieces in it are quite raw and were written during the fires of 2019-2020. More than anything, it's about home and the importance of having a home, but also what it feels like to have that taken away. So I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which I live and work, the people of the Yuin Nation, and I would like to pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging. Before I begin my reading, I am reading from a piece about 3/4 of the way through the book, which is called Short Stories by Georgia Bin Chicken, and they're kind of a series of microfiction, like little diary entries, and this is one of them called Divergence. One of the big themes of the book is also disability, and this one is about that. Divergence. Before the car crash, my brain was in one piece. The connections were infinite and uninterrupted. They lit up like a game show, and I was winning. Ting, ting, ting. After the hemorrhages, my brain felt like a cake, cut up, devoured, crumbling. My thoughts and ideas limped along the stems and found only cul-de-sacs. They would die there waiting for someone to find them. That place bled where it wasn't meant to. There was no sun to dry it out. There were no tour guides or signs. There weren't any game show lights left on. It was a dark place. At times, I thought it must be the darkest place on earth. Can you imagine one small brain bleeding in 3 different places? Name and Georgia were disconnected. No and yes had swapped seats. Body movements had become mathematical, and mathematics had always been a foreign language to me. Where is the foot? How do I alternate? What does alternate mean? That's a weird word. All I ever heard was my own electricity fizzling out and my own heart throwing itself against the rib wall. Fizz, whack. Fizz, whack. I'd grown up surrounded by disability, and I had my own complicated relationship with the term. Now I was the one sitting in the disability advisor's office. Now I was the one needing extra help. Now I was in rehab every week at the hospital. Now I was being driven everywhere by the community transport car, listening to people talk about colostomy bags and horoscopes. Now I was incontinent, and I was mortified. An invisible disability, they called it. Many friends defriended me because I was carrying on. I looked fine. They didn't see the scrambled egg insides of my brain. I didn't tell them the truth, because I knew there wasn't a safe space in which to air anything that dark or problematic. The darkness felt like a vortex swirling me down towards it. It felt powerful. I had very little strength left to refuse it. Some days I had none. Our muscles have memories. Even when we can't register them, our body gravitates towards the things it has loved before. When there was nothing in that wounded brain, my body remembered familiarity. My skin knew what yours felt like. I couldn't remember our relationship, but my body did. The curves of your fingers when they curled into mine, the low range of your voice that sometimes was hard to decipher, My ears didn't know the words, but they loved the sound. I couldn't write or speak properly at the time, but in my old notebook I had written in the messiest of handwriting, "My body found you. My body found you. My body found you when I couldn't." And I suppose there is no greater love letter I can offer than that. That I will always find my way back to you. Even when this world has torn me to pieces, my pieces will blow in the wind until they land at your feet. I had nothing and no one to trust other than my senses, and they proved pretty sound. My eyes ran over the river like it was music. My eyes had sunken into that green silk before. They knew all the animals that lived under there. My skin knew it was cold. My eyes knew they'd traced those rocks and mangroves before. My feet remembered those mangrove roots were like little swords to tread on. My fingers had caught those crabs before. My nose could smell the salt and gums already from way up here, confined on my daybed. I didn't have to move my broken bones to feel it all again. Then you said to me, "Georgia, darkness has no power. It is not a vortex or a hole you can fall into. Darkness has no agency. Darkness is merely the absence of light. That is all it is. That is all it is." And in time, that is all it became, until the day I realized that human beings actually emit their own light. We actually do glow, not just in some fitting book conclusion, but in real life. Apparently more so in the afternoons, detectable with super sensitive cameras. So my body produces its own light. My body held my memories for me until I was ready for them. My body loved when I couldn't. My body is a medium. My body is a time traveler. My body has secrets. My body is a survivor. My body far exceeds my mind. My body is mine. My body is splendid. What a vehicle to travel in. 15 years later, and the fizz and the whacking have faded. My roadworks and excavating have removed much of the rubble. There are detour signs everywhere. I put them there myself. Not efficient, but they get me there eventually. My brain has finally checked my body, identified it, inspected the bones that grew when the others were shattered, executed a risk assessment and strategic plan, and I now declare the renovation's over. I'm in business. I didn't need to be thrown out like that social worker said. I just needed time and some new signs. And I can tell you, there's a lot to be said for taking the scenic route.